Hello, it's Karen Burniston here with an assembly video for one of our die sets. This is die number 1080, the Woven Basket Box Card, and you can check out all of our die designs at karenburniston.com. A box card is a standalone card, so what that means is that you don't put it inside a bigger card. It's not really a pop-up in that regard. It's more just that it flattens down so that you can mail it, and then when the recipient takes it out of the envelope, they just shape it back into a box and then displays beautifully that way. So if you are looking at this and wondering how it differs from our flower pot pop-up die set, the flower pot pop-up is designed to go in a card. It doesn't have the woven sides and it's smaller. So they perform different functions, but of course all the decorator pieces, the flowers and the vines, those can be mixed and matched between the two sets. They do not duplicate. The set comes with 9 individual dies, and I will need 2 of them to make the woven basket itself. You can use any die cutting machine that can accommodate a wafer-thin die, and today I am using a Sizzix Big Shot. The bigger die is the basket sides, and I'll need to die cut that twice. And then the other die is the weaving strips, and you'll need 4 sets of those. But assuming that you choose a lightweight cardstock or paper to be the weaving strips, you can definitely cut through 2 layers at one time. I do suggest when you're trying to cut through 2 layers with a wafer-thin die, though, that you roll through twice. Okay, so I have 2 basket sides and 4 sets of weaving strips, so I'm ready to get started. Step 1 is to find the 2 score lines in each of your basket sides. So that would be right up the middle, as well as the little tab on the edge. Now I'll use a strong adhesive on one of those tabs to be able to connect the 2 halves together. Now I am using Lineco Neutral pH adhesive in my fine tip bottle, and we do sell both of those items on our website. However, you could just as easily use a very strong tape. Okay, once I have one nice long strip, then it's time to do the weaving. So you always start with the one that goes across the bottom, and that one has 2 weaving strips attached. So you start at the bottom by going underneath the first slat. And then, of course, over the next section, and then under the next slat. So it's just over and under until you end up with the 2 ends inside the basket, and the bottom edge should be aligned perfectly. And it is only underneath that bottom section that needs some glue or tape to hold it in place. So just a little line of glue across the bottom, then just make sure that those edges are perfectly aligned both on the sides and the bottom edge. And then I switch to the other piece to finish the weaving. So the other piece looks like a capital letter T. T for top, I like to say. And then in the middle there are 5 really close together score lines. So you have a little option here. If you work all of those 5 score lines as mountain folds, you'll get a little rolled edge, but it's easiest to do that by taking either a little toothpick or one of these small little dowels that you get at the craft store and putting it behind the piece and then rolling around that piece to get that perfect rolled edge. And like I said, a toothpick would work just as well. So the rolling is just one option. You also have the option to just put the piece in and just fold the excess to the inside of the basket and glue it down. So then you'll just have a regular folded edge at the top. I just wanted to show that possibility of getting the rolled edge. So this piece gets woven from the top, and you're going opposite to the one that you've already added. And once again, the end of the slat will end up inside the basket. And just weave it all the way down until you can't see any of the center slat up at the top. So then I can fold that piece back to be able to add some glue in there. And since I'm doing a rolled edge, I'm going to keep my glue towards the bottom. And then I just want to make sure that the sides are perfectly aligned as I press it into that glue. Once that side is secure, then I flip it around so that I can see on the inside of the basket. And then I want to fold in the remaining piece and secure it inside the basket. And so this is where I want to kind of maintain that rolled edge. So as I fold it over, I'm not doing a crisp fold across the top. I'm working mostly on the bottom edge and leaving the upper part rolled. And then this is what you end up with. And rolling that edge is optional, so if you prefer, you can just fold it over into the inside of the basket and glue it down. And now I just need to repeat that same exact process on the other 3 sides of the basket. Once I have the weaving done on all four sides, then I can complete the basket itself by just using a strong adhesive in the other small tab and gluing it to the other side. And then once you have that tab attached, you have the basket working. It will collapse in both directions. There really isn't a front or a back to it, so you get to decide where the front is. There is a die in the set for the crossbars, and that die also cuts a grassy edge across the top. That is optional. You can cut those grass blades off if you're doing a theme that doesn't require them. So I normally cut 4 sets of grass. 2 of them will be suspended across the basket as crossbars, and for those you'll make use of the tabs. So the tabs should fold towards the front on one of the pieces and towards the back on the other piece. So this is a very user-friendly die set in that those tabs are actually going to just go right into the weaving of the basket, so you get perfect placement every time. So you go down to the 3rd row from the top, and that does include the row at the top that has the rounded edge. That's one of your rows. So 2 more down from there, and then you'll see the little woven strips on the inside of the basket, and those tabs will just fit right behind those strips. So you just slide them right in, and that's perfect placement. Okay, let me slide it back out a little bit so you can see where it's going. That tab is going right behind that woven strip. Okay, now let me do it for real, which means I want glue on my tabs. So my favorite thing to do is just add the glue to both sides of the tab. I'm sure it would hold with only glue on one side, but why not just make sure it's in there nice and secure? Okay, so then I go back into that same position I was in before. So I count down to the 3rd row from the top, and that includes the solid row at the top, and you'll see the location where those tabs will just slide right into the weaving. And liquid glue is really your best bet for this step so that you have the ability to slide those tabs in while that glue is still wet. Then you can collapse the basket and give everything a good press. Just a little bit of that grass will end up peeking up above the basket edge. So that's the back grass, and the tabs point towards the back of the basket. And then when I go to do the other one, the front grass, then the tabs point towards the front of the basket. I go down to the exact same row, and this time I slide the tabs in toward the front. So the back grass tabs point toward the back, the front grass tabs point toward the front, and then that way you'll get that perfect even spacing across your grass pieces. And having those tabs to just work into the weaving just makes it very user-friendly. It's easy to get good placement, they're very secure. You don't see the grass tabs inside the basket or outside the basket because they're hidden right there in the weaving. And then something that I think looks nice is to add additional grass to the basket by just removing the tabs and then gluing the grass inside the front edge, just making sure that about the same amount of grass is sticking up. And then same thing across the back. Now I like to take off a little bit more than the tab, so a little bit of the side as well, just so that when I glue that in, I'm not creating any little bunching in the fold so that I can still close it quite easily. Okay, so the basket structure is done, and now it's time to do all the fun decorating. There is a die that cuts a rope handle in the set, and I've cut that twice out of a brown cardstock. And then what I like to do is just take glue out on the ends of the rope handle and then just put one side over the other. So by bringing those ends together, it will put a little bit of a decorative bend into the handle, which I like to turn outward. And then where you put your handle is completely up to you, but I like to weave it into the basket on the side. And one of my favorite spots is just about halfway down the basket. You can get it there kind of behind the original color. So whatever color you did the basket sides out of, there's like a slot right there, and that seems to work perfectly for the handle. And then I just repeat that for the other side of the basket. Okay, let's talk about a few decorating tips. With the spotty vine, I like to make sure that that's very durable so that it can hold up flowers in my bouquet. So what I like to do is take my cardstock and double it with a fold at the top. And then when I die cut the spotty vine, I just make sure that that fold line is in that uppermost spot, but down a little bit from the edge. And then I just make sure that I roll it through twice. Now this will create a hinged, doubled up vine, so then I can glue that together around one of the pieces of grass, and then I have a very durable vine that will actually hold up a layered flower. If I were just planning on using the spotty vines as standalone decoration, I would just cut them as singles. When I cut the spots, I like to have score tape on the back of my cardstock or paper, and then that way all of those spots become stickers, and that makes it really easy to add them either out on the end of spotty vine or in the centers of flowers. And on those vines that have been hinged, if you just add a decorative spot up at the hinged one, then you're not going to even notice that you've got that hinged edge. There are 3 size flowers in the set. They look absolutely great if you leave them flat, so don't feel like you have to shape your flowers, but here in the assembly video I just like to show people different ideas. So for these flowers, I've turned a flower over onto a piece of fun foam, and I'm using a ball stylus to just shape the flowers. And then I can just layer a couple of shaped flowers together. How you build your bouquet and fill your basket is completely up to you. One of my favorite things to do is to start along the back row, and I like to get good height along the back, and then I move forward into the basket, just kind of staggering the locations of the flowers as I go. I also like to connect nearby items together when I can. That way it just provides a little bit more stability, especially for the things that are pretty high. For the suspended grass, I really like to have those vines straddle over the grass so that half is attached to the back and half is attached to the front. I also like to check every once in a while and make sure that I haven't put a flower or a vine in a location that makes it hard for the basket to close up for mailing. So just check it every so often. So everything you need to make this beautiful card is included in the die set. And now all I need to do is figure out what I want to do for a greeting. And I decided to use the Love You from Word Set 9 Love. And I've cut that twice and staggered it so that I get a little shadow. And then I'm going to glue that to the front of the basket and let a little bit of the greeting hang off of the edge. And then if I wanted a place to write a personal greeting or sign the card, I probably would just add a circle to the back of the basket or maybe tie a tag onto one of the handles. You can measure your card in the closed position to figure out the envelope size. I have found that an A7 envelope, which is sized for a 5x7 card, is really a nice size to hold a nice big bouquet in the woven basket box card. So that should mail no problem. And then of course when the recipient gets it and pulls it out of the envelope, they just need to shape it into a basket again, and then it'll display beautifully on the table. Here's the one from the packaging where I suspended the Happy Spring greeting right into the bouquet. Now here's a masculine version where I didn't use any of the flowers or the vines, but instead I swapped out for the outdoor scene, some trees from the evergreen pivot panels, and the camping charms. And then the greeting is Word Set 2. And let me close out with a few ideas by our very talented design team. Here's a bright sunny bouquet card by Fran Sabad. For this card, Sandy Diller added some of our new Easter themed dies as well as made the spotty vine dimensional. And then another Easter themed basket card, this one by Lois Bach, and I just love the color combination on this. Karen Aiken used some of our royalty dies to make this very clever little princess version. And Kelly Booth made a love-themed version, and notice that she folded her flaps toward the outside. Frances Byrne chose some gorgeous colors and added a peeking owl to this thank you basket. And then this Love You Happy Birthday basket in some beautiful reds and pinks by Lois Bach. You will find the woven basket box card on our website as well as in some of your favorite local and online retailers starting at the end of January 2019. Thanks for watching. If you click on the website link, you'll go to KarenBurniston.com where you can find out information about purchasing these dies as well as links to all my other social media accounts. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel and check out some of my other videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.